We have all seen these images of what's happening in France right now, and we all know what the historical roots of these events are. Or are they? Is there a deeper historical root to the Yellow Vest protests? It's September 1356, 19 years after the outbreak of the 100 Years' War, and 8 years after the Great Plague. The English control part of southern and northern France and claim the crown for themselves. The plague wiped out over a third of the country's population. The Black Prince at the head of an English army is on a chevauchée heading back from Bourges to the safety of the English territory. A chevauchée is a type of large-scale raid pioneered by the prince intended to bring death and destruction to the enemy's heartland. Now laden with loot, the 6,000 English are intercepted by a French army twice their size, commanded by the King John II. The French deploy in 3 battles, the strongest one in the rear, commanded by the king. The English place their infantry in the front, archers to the side and cavalry in the reserve. The French, confident in their superior numbers, charge the English but are thrown back by longbows and infantry determined to hold the line. They panic and retreat all the way to the king's battalion, where they are reassured the battle is not yet lost. But their retreat is determined to be a rout by the English, who mount a charge into the disorganized French lines. The right-wing cavalry outflanks the French, and the archers complete the encirclement. It's a massacre. 3,000 French are killed, 2,000 captured, including the king himself. With a string of victories behind them and the French king in their possession, the English know they won. Not only the battle, but also the war. The French will be forced to accept a humiliating peace, and a king's ransom is bound to come. In this dire situation, the Dauphin, the king's eldest son, assumes the regency. His father's ransom had been set at 3 million crowns. There's no way he can make up that sum alone, so he must rely on the generosity of his people, especially in the bourgeoisie, who are the foremost creditors of the monarchy in these turbulent times. Their power had grown disproportionately in the past centuries. Towns and merchants had gotten richer and richer. Paris is the largest city in the known world at this time, with its 200,000 inhabitants. Its mayor is the rich merchant, Etienne Marcel. He had been a key spokesman for reforms at the Estates General a year before. Now the assembly of nobles, clergy, and the third estate, the bourgeoisie, is convened again in Paris. Unlike the English Parliament, the French Estates General is a purely advisory body with no power over the king. Etienne Marcel and his party of reformers see this as a chance to force their will on the weak regent who is now in need of their help. They demand the immediate dismissal of the king's councillors. A body of 28 men chosen from amongst them is to advise the regent, and also the freeing of the King of Navarre. The King of Navarre is a divisive figure, essentially a double agent, sometimes siding with the French, sometimes with the English, depending on his interests. Marcel sees him as a vehicle for his ascension, a countermeasure and an alternative to the Valois. After deliberations with his father's councillors, the regent rejects Marcel's terms and leaves Paris. As a desperate measure to pay for his father's ransom, he starts to devalue coinage. The people of Paris are enraged, and Marcel calls for a general strike. In March the next year, the regent is forced to convene another Estates General. This time Marcel and his allies put forth the Grand Ordinance, specifying that the king could not levy taxes unless voted for by the Estates General, that the Estates General could assemble whenever they wished, and that a council of 36, 12 nobles, 12 clergy, and 12 bourgeoisie is to be selected from amongst themselves to advise the king. This time the regent is more willing to compromise. However, when the king, who ultimately has to sign the document, is informed of what's in it, he outright refuses to ratify. As the country becomes increasingly ungovernable, the regent again leaves Paris. While these events take place in Paris, the countryside descends into pure mayhem and anarchy. With the war over, the English disband their armies. Left without pay, these unemployed soldiers must find other ways to sustain themselves. They band together under ambitious captains and roam the countryside, burning, pillaging, raping and looting their way to France. As neither France nor England have standing armies, there's no way to combat this. Since it's all on French territory, the English are unconcerned. Some French lords who are bankrupted from paying their ransoms also join the brigands. Knight and brigand become interchangeable words as France faces worse times than even during the war. All is not well for Marcel either by this time. The nobles despise the merchant classes and increasingly feel that too much power is getting into the hands of the bourgeoisie. Little by little they desert the estates and more flock to the regent's side. Emboldened by these desertions, the regent reinstates his old councillors and informs the estates that he intends to govern alone. With opportunity slipping away, Marcel needs an ally. Enter the King of Navarre. Marcel invites him to bolster his cause, and Navarre enters Paris with a large retinue of knights. With his arch-rival in the capital, the regent has no other choice but to convene another Estates General and go back to Paris himself. Once there, he gives a rousing speech that shifts public opinion in his favor. Marcel can't let this happen. He must act. Gathering 3,000 of his followers, he marches to the Louvre castle, where the regent resides, and murders the two marshals of France in view of the regent himself. Given the gravity of the situation, the terrified regent is forced to concede to all of Marcel's demands. After the killers leave, he flees Paris and deposits his wife and sister for safekeeping at the castle of Meaux. Marcel loses the remainder of the support of the nobility, and the regent vows not to give in to open threats. He orders his nobles to blockade Paris by building a ring of fortifications around it. To this end, they are allowed to use all the goods and services of the peasants that they might need. Contemporaries agree that this was the catalyst to the frightful events to come. In these days, most peasants are still serfs, bound to their lord and to the land. The lords just call them Jacques, or Jacques Bonhommes, for the simple padded jackets they wear. They are neither slaves nor freemen. They could not leave their lord or marry outside his estate. They pay a tax to the king, a tax to the church, a tax to their lord, and a tax when they die. Most don't even own their own plows and horses to work the land. If they need one, they must pay a tax. Additionally to the many taxes, they also owe unpaid work to the lord. Every month they must work for a number of days on the lord's field. Only when they are done with their work on the lord's field are they allowed to work on their own plots of land, that are in fact usually not even owned by them, but rather by their lord. The peasants also lack moral support. The church teaches that if one doesn't pay one's taxes, he must surely end up in hell and face eternal damnation, as paying taxes is God's way for the poor. In return for all those taxes and unpaid labor, the lords have the obligation to provide protection and justice for their peasants, neither of which they currently do. In fact, many lords of France act as brigands and highwaymen, robbing, raping and pillaging their wards. If this wasn't enough, they even let the King of France fall prisoner to the English on French land. Fed up, around 100 peasants gather in the churchyard in the village of Saint-Leu on the night of the 28th of May, 1358. They ask themselves, what are the knights good for except to oppress poor peasants? They shamed and despoiled the realm. It would be a good thing to destroy them all. Listeners cry out, it's true, shame on him who holds back. Having lost their fear of the nobility, they descend on the nearest manor house, tie up the knight, rape his wife and daughter, then murder everyone and burn everything to the ground. Events escalate in an alarming manner, as news spreads from one village to the other. Enraged peasants burn down castles and manor houses, ransack churches and monasteries, and roam around the land, killing every lord they can get their hands on. The Jacquerie spreads like wildfire through Ile-de-France, Picardy, Champagne, Coucy, Laon, Soissons, Senlis, Beauvois and Amiens. All the lords can do is hide. Some of the lesser nobility and lesser bourgeoisie also join the peasants. They adopt the fleur-de-lis as their flag, showing they are not against the king, rather they want to rid the world of its corrupt lords. Back in Paris, Etienne Marcel decides to seize the opportunity of the peasants' revolt and immediately allies himself with their cause. The Jacques march into Paris, and and on Marcel's instigation a band of around 1,000 sets off to lay siege to the castle of Meaux, where currently the regent's family resides. The town opens its gates to the peasants, but the siege quickly degenerates into drunken debauchery. As fate has it, the Captal de Buch and the Count of Foix are just miles away, returning from crusade in the Baltics at the head of 100 knights. Hearing of the peril of the royal family at Meaux, they rush to their aid. Both of them are from the south, far removed from the troubles. They have no fear of the peasants and are determined to crush them. The castle is divided from the town by a bridge. The knights make their stand here, where due to the narrowness of the bridge, numeric superiority doesn't count. As the first ranks of peasants fall, the rest begin to rout. The knights ride them down and kill them where they stand, after which they burn the town and put its inhabitants to the sword. Not far away at Mello, a large force of peasants gather. The chosen commander, a peasant by the name of Guillaume Calais, advises them to retreat, however the peasants are spoiling for a fight. Facing them is the King of Navarre. Like Etienne Marcel, he sees the peasants' revolt as an opportunity. Crushing them could increase his popularity and propel him to the throne of France. However, his force is far smaller, and the peasants seem determined to fight. Typically of him, he resorts to trickery. He invites Guillaume Calais to parley. Trusting in the king's chivalry, Calais foolishly agrees and is immediately taken prisoner. Seeing their leader fall, the peasants lose heart and begin to desert. The knights descend on them and cut them down as they flee. Just 2 weeks after it started, the peasants' revolt is over. Gaining heart from their 2 victories, the nobles begin their reprisals. Peasants are hung, tortured, and hunted down. Villages are indiscriminately burned and 20,000 are put to the sword. In Paris, Etienne Marcel knows his time is up. The city is shadowed by 2 armies, that of Navarre and that of the regent. Marcel still has hope in Navarre, however Navarre is already in negotiations with both sides. Marcel invites Navarre and his contingent of English troops into Paris and proclaims him King of France. For the Parisians, this is the straw that broke the camel's back. Navarre and his English are attacked in the streets and are forced to seek refuge in the Louvre castle. Marcel rushes to the gates of Paris to let in more English, but angry Parisians lynch him and declare their support for the regent. The regent enters Paris in triumph, and after a short reprisal declares amnesty for all who took part in the recent events. People realize not parliament, but a strong monarchy will bring peace to the land. After their bloody revenge, the nobles also realize there is no one to collect the harvest. With the plague, the war, and now the peasants' revolt, workers are scarce and it's time for the lords to make compromises. Serfdom gradually disappears in France. Former serfs become tenants, no longer obliged to provide unpaid labor to their lords. They are free to move and marry whoever they want. As for the war, things get worse before they get better. It will take France 95 years to conclude the war, and the big winner of it all will be the French monarchy, coming out stronger than ever at the end. The Jacquerie is still remembered in France and often used as a synonym for a violent popular uprising. To sum it up, there are similarities and there are differences. There isn't a war right now in France, there are no plagues, and the conditions of the poor are not nearly as bad. Lords have long since disappeared, and the Etienne Marcels have long since replaced them. History doesn't repeat itself, but it certainly rhymes. The key term to study here is anomie. Anomie is the condition in which society provides little moral guidance to individuals. It is the breakdown of social bonds between an individual and the community. For example, under unruly scenarios resulting in fragmentation of social identity and rejection of self-regulatory values. And there's the similarity between the Yellow Vest protests and the Jacquerie.